broken. She was hidden by her family, until the Alpha King asked for her hand. A true life story. The attic smelled like old wood and forgotten things. Sarah did not mind the smell. She had been sleeping next to it for so long that it had stopped being a smell. It was just air, just the way the world tasted when no one was watching. She sat on the floor, her back against the sloped wall, a pile of laundry in front of her. She folded each piece the same way. Corners matched, edges straight. She had been doing it since she was small enough to sit inside the laundry basket itself. Folding things was the one job nobody took from her. The rest of her life was not hers. Her name was Sarah Vane. She was 19 years old. She had never been to a party, never had a friend sleep over, never sat at the dinner table with her own family without being told, first with eyes and then with words, that she was in the wrong seat. She had stopped sitting at the table by the time she was 12. By 13, she ate in the attic. By 15, she had stopped expecting anything different. She was the third daughter of the Vane pack. In a family of wolves, she had been born without one. That was the word they used, broken. Not out loud, not anymore. They didn't need to say it out loud. It lived in the pause before her name whenever anyone spoke it, in the way her stepmother looked at her shoes instead of her face, in the way her father had stopped looking at her altogether sometime around her 10th birthday, when it became clear that she was not going to shift on her own, not going to grow into something useful, not going to be anything except what she already was, an omega, rankless, wolfless, broken. She folded the last shirt, set it on the stack, sat with her hands in her lap, and listened to the house below her. It was loud this morning. The noise started before sunrise. Sarah heard footsteps, multiple, moving fast, and the particular pitch of her stepmother Calla's voice that meant something important had happened. Not bad important. Important like opportunity, like money, like the kind of door that only opens once. She did not go downstairs to find out what it was. She had learned long ago that going downstairs to find out things only made people annoyed that she was there. She found out the way she usually found out things. Through the floor. Wood carries sound if you know where to press your ear. A royal summons, her father's voice said, low and trying to sound casual. Failing. For all alpha families. Calla's voice. Not low, not trying to be anything. The king is looking for a mate. Our family has been listed. A pause. Long enough to mean something. Which daughters? Lena and Petra. Silence. And in that silence, Sarah heard the thing they did not say. The third name. The one that was not going to be said. The name that was not going to be listed. She pressed her palm flat against the floor, just to feel something solid. The king. She had heard of Aldrich the way you hear of winter. Not because anyone describes it to you, but because it keeps coming back. He was the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. 26 years old. Had taken the throne at 18 under circumstances nobody in polite conversation would describe in more than 2 words. Brutal, necessary, his. He had held it since. The packs respected him the way people respect a cliff edge, because of what he could do, because of how far the fall was. She heard Calla begin listing what the girls would wear, what they would say, how they would stand. She went back to the laundry. The house became a different place in the 3 days before the presentation. Flowers arrived. Dressmakers arrived. A woman with a leather case full of small glass bottles arrived, and Sarah smelled her from the attic. Rose and something underneath the rose, something chemical and precise. Lena, the eldest, was 22 and had the kind of bone structure that made people trip on flat ground. Petra was 20, sharp-tongued in ways she had learned to disguise as wit. They were both good, both trained, both exactly what an alpha family was supposed to produce. Sarah stayed out of the way. It was what she was best at. On the morning of the presentation, Calla came to the attic. This was unusual enough that Sarah stood up before she even had a reason to. "You'll go to the kitchen," Calla said. She did not come fully into the room. She stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame. "Stay there until the king's party leaves. Do not come out for any reason." Sarah looked at her. "All right." Something crossed Calla's face. Not guilt exactly. Something more like a loose thread she had noticed and chosen not to pull. There's bread to be moved from the cellar. Do that first. And then she was gone. Sarah stood in the middle of the attic for a moment. She looked at the folded laundry. She looked at the small square window that faced north and let in no useful amount of light. She picked up her shoes. The king's party arrived at 9 in the morning. Sarah knew because the whole house rang like a bell. Not literally, but something in the air changed, a pressure shift, like before a storm, and she felt it in the back of her teeth while she was carrying bread from the cellar to the kitchen. She had 4 loaves. They were heavier than they looked. She was cutting across the east corridor, the one that connected the kitchen to the back rooms, the one nobody used because it was dim and smelled like a previous decade's wallpaper choices. She was looking at the bread, making sure the stack wasn't going to slide, when she walked directly into something that did not move. She walked into it hard enough to knock 1 loaf off the top of her stack. She looked up. The wall was warm. That was the first thing she noticed, before her brain caught up. The wall was warm and wearing charcoal gray, and there were hands, large, unhurried hands, catching the falling loaf before it hit the ground. The wall was not a wall. She stepped back. She had to tip her head back to look at his face, which she did not want to do because looking at his face made her brain make a sound like a failing dial-up connection. He was. She did not have a word for what he was. Gorgeous in the way that makes you want to do something stupid and immediately regret having thought of it. He held the bread out to her. She took it. She did not say thank you, because her mouth had briefly forgotten that words were something it could make. Are you all right? His voice was lower than she expected. Unhurried, like his hands. The bread is fine, she said. A beat, something at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. She could not read it. I meant you. Oh, she looked at the bread. It was easier to look at the bread. Yes. Which way is the main hall? She pointed. He nodded once. He moved past her without another word, which was good, which was exactly what she wanted, except that she stood in the corridor for a long moment after he was gone, staring at the place where he had been standing, and then she looked down at the bread in her arms and said quietly to no one in particular, "Right." She went to the kitchen. She put the bread down on the counter. She thought, for reasons she could not entirely explain, about the way his hands had caught the loaf before it hit the ground, fast without looking, rushed, like it was just the obvious thing to do. She picked up a knife. She began to slice. She did not find out what happened in the main hall until later. Lena told her, not because Lena had ever developed the habit of speaking to Sarah, but because Lena was angry, and people who are angry need to say the thing that is making them angry to someone. Anyone. Even a broken sister in a kitchen. He barely looked at us, Lena said. She stood in the kitchen doorway, her dress slightly wrong at the shoulder, like something had been gripped and released. He sat through the whole presentation. He asked 3 questions. Then he said he needed a moment. Sarah kept slicing bread. He walked out into the corridor, Lena said. Her voice had the particular flatness that means something is wrong and the person speaking does not want to say what. Sarah's hand slowed. He came back in and asked Father who the girl with the bread was. The bread was very interesting right now. The grain of it, the texture. Father said there was no girl with bread. And then the king said there was. Silence in the kitchen. Just the knife and the bread, and Lena in the doorway with the wrong shoulder. He asked for your name, Lena said finally. And then she turned and left, because she was Lena, and saying things that were difficult was not something she stayed around for. Sarah set the knife down. She looked at her hands on the counter. She looked at the bread. She thought about the bread for a very long time, in the way that you think about something that has nothing to do with the actual thing you're thinking about. That had never happened before. He stood in the same doorway Lena had stood in, and he looked at Sarah the way he usually looked, slightly past her, except this time there was something different in it. An effort, like he was working at something that didn't come naturally. The king wants to speak with you. Sarah said nothing. You will say that you are not available, that you are engaged, that you are... He paused. Unwell. She looked at him. She let herself look at him fully, which she rarely did, because it cost something she didn't always have to spend. He was older. He had always been older than she expected, whenever she actually looked. What if I don't say that? She said. Not a question exactly, more like an object she was setting on the table between them. His jaw tightened. Sarah, what if I go and speak to him and say something different? That is not... He stopped. He had never had to build sentences about Sarah that accounted for her having a preference. He did not have the materials for it. You are not what he is looking for. You don't know what he's looking for. He needs a strong mate, someone who can... You mean someone with a wolf? He said nothing. Which was, she had learned over 19 years, its own kind of answer. She nodded. I'll go speak to him, she said. I won't say anything I don't mean. She walked past him. She was careful not to hurry. She had learned long ago that hurrying looked like it mattered, and she was not going to let this look like it mattered. Even though her chest felt like a clock with a broken spring, Calla caught her in the hallway outside the main room. She did not say anything. She just took Sarah's wrist, in the way she had always taken it when she wanted Sarah to understand something without words. Her grip was practiced, efficient. It left small maps on the skin. Sarah had a whole atlas of them. You will not embarrass this family, Calla said. Sarah looked at the wall. There was a painting there she had never paid attention to. Somebody's ancestor on a horse that looked annoyed about the whole situation. She thought she understood the horse. I have never embarrassed this family, she said. She removed her wrist from Calla's hand. She opened the door. He was standing at the window when she came in. The main hall looked different without the family in it. Bigger. The light came in at a low angle and made the floor look almost warm, which it wasn't. She knew from years of sitting on it that it was cold in every season. He turned when he heard the door. He looked at her the way he had looked at her in the corridor, like he was reading something, carefully, without hurrying. You're the girl with the bread, he said. You remembered the bread, she said. Not the girl. That thing at the corner of his mouth again. She was starting to think it was a smile that hadn't decided yet. I remembered both, he said. She stood near the door. She did not move toward him, and she did not move away. She was very good at staying exactly where she was. It was her best skill after laundry. Your father says you're unavailable, he said. My father says a lot of things. He said you were unwell. I am extremely well. I cut bread for 40 minutes this morning and carried things from the cellar and folded laundry at 6 in the morning, and none of it was difficult. A pause. He also said, Aldrich said carefully, that you were not part of the presentation today. I was not part of the presentation today. Why not? She looked at the painting on the far wall. A different ancestor, different horse, same expression. Because I don't have a wolf, she said. Because I'm an omega in an alpha family. Because my father decided a long time ago that I was not something worth presenting. She said it the way you say something you've held so long it has worn smooth. No edges left, just the shape of it. He did not say he was sorry. She appreciated that. Sorry was a word people used when they didn't know what else to do with their mouths. Do you want to leave this house? He said. It was not the question she was expecting. She had prepared for questions about her rank, her lack of wolf, her father's objections. She had not prepared for that one. She was quiet for a moment. That depends, she said, on where I would go. My household, as my chosen mate, with your own rooms, your own staff, your own... Why, she said. He stopped. Not why in the complaining sense, she said. I'm asking genuinely. You have an entire list of alpha daughters who are trained and ranked and have wolves and have been preparing for this their whole lives. I carry bread and fold laundry. I don't understand the logic. He looked at her for a long time. In the corridor, he said, you walked into me and your first response was to check if the bread was all right. The bread was expensive. You didn't look at me like I was the king. I didn't know you were the king. You looked at me like I was a wall that had gotten in your way. She opened her mouth, closed it. That is accurate, she said. Everyone in that hall looked at me like I was a position to be filled. A problem to be solved, a door to open. She waited. You looked at me like I was an inconvenience, he said. I have not been an inconvenience to anyone in 8 years. She thought about that. I can continue to find you inconvenient, she said. If that's useful, he laughed. Actual, small, slightly surprised. She had not expected that either. "I need to ask you something," he said. He had moved slightly, shifted his weight, like the conversation had moved into different territory and his body knew it. "And I need you to answer it honestly, not the way you think I want it answered." "I don't know how you want things answered," she said. "I just met you. Fair." Then, he was quiet for a moment. "Do you want this? Not for the house, not to leave, not because of your family. Do you personally want this?" She looked at him. He looked back. He had steady eyes. Not kind, exactly. Kindness was something warm and soft-edged, and his eyes were neither, but honest. She had not been looked at honestly in so long that she had almost forgotten what it felt like being handed something real after years of cardboard. She thought about the attic. She thought about the laundry, the counting, the door that was always locked. She thought about the atlas of small marks on her wrist. "I don't know you," she said. "No, I don't know anything about your household or your life, or what you're actually like outside of whatever this is." She gestured slightly at the room, at the situation, at all of it. Also fair. "You could be difficult. You could be worse than this." She did not gesture at anything specific. He understood. "I could be. You might look at me the same way they do after 6 months. I might." She looked at the floor. The cold floor she knew from years of sitting on it. "But She stopped. She thought about how to say the things she had not said out loud before. "I'm done," she said. "With this. With folding laundry in the attic and eating alone and being the person in this house who is not supposed to exist. I am so done with it that the word done is not a big enough word." He was quiet. "So yes," she said, "but not because of you. Not yet." He nodded, slowly. Like that was an answer he could work with. "That's honest," he said. "You asked for honest." "I did." Her father made one more attempt. He came into the hall while they were still there, which took something. Sarah could see it in the set of his shoulders, something like courage or like desperation, and she was not sure there was always a difference. "Your Majesty," he said. His voice was even, practiced. "My daughter she is not suitable for this. She has no wolf, she cannot shift, she has no training in court." "I know," Aldrich said. Her father blinked. "Then you understand that." "I know all of that, and I am still asking for her." Silence. Her father looked at her, really looked at her, for what might have been the first time in years. She looked back. She did not help him. She had been helping him hide her for 19 years, and she did not have it in her to do it one more time. He stopped. His throat moved. "She is my daughter." "Yes?" Aldrich said. Quiet, like he was saying, "And what have you done with that?" Her father did not finish the sentence. Maybe there was no ending for it. Maybe the ending was in every attic meal, and every locked door, and every name not spoken, and he knew it, and knowing it was its own punishment, and Sarah was not interested in adding to it, or subtracting from it. She was interested in leaving. They gave her an hour to gather her things. It did not take an hour. 2 bags. One with clothes, not many, because most of what she owned had been handed down or handed over or taken back. One with the small things that were actually hers. A book with a broken spine that she had read so many times the pages had gone soft. A folded drawing she had made at 8 years old of a dog she had wanted and never gotten. A small piece of blue glass she had found in the garden years ago and kept because it was pretty, and keeping things that were pretty was allowed. Probably, she had never been specifically told it wasn't. She walked downstairs. Calla was at the bottom. She was not blocking the way. She was just standing there, in the particular still way of someone who has too much to say and has decided to say none of it. Sarah looked at her. She did not say anything. There were words. There were years of words. But she had carried them this long, and they were part of her now, and she did not want to put them down in this house. She would keep them. They were hers. She walked past Calla. She walked through the front hall, past the painting she had never been allowed to stop and look at, the big one, the one with the first vein who had made anything of himself. She looked at it now, just for a second. He looked like someone who had decided something. She walked out the front door. The morning light was very bright. She had not been out the front door in a long time. She had used the side entrance, the kitchen door, the path around the back that led to the garden. The front door was for people who were real. The carriage was larger than she expected. Dark wood, no flags, which surprised her until she understood that a king who announces himself everywhere is a king who has something to prove. The horses were calm, good horses. She appreciated calm. Aldrich was already there, speaking to one of his men. The staff took her bags. She watched them do it. 2 bags. It did not take long. He came to stand beside her while they loaded. He did not say anything. He just stood there, which she was beginning to understand was a thing he did, simply occupied space without needing to fill it with sound. "It's very bright," she said, looking at the front of the house. "Yes, I don't use this entrance usually." "I know." She looked at him. He was looking at the house. There was something in his face that she could not fully read. Not anger, not quite, but in the neighborhood of it. In the same district. "You don't have to do that," she said. "Do what?" "Be angry at them on my behalf. It's old." She looked back at the house. "It's been old for a long time." He was quiet. "I'm not angry," he said. She looked at him. "That's not anger?" she said. Something at the corner of his mouth. "That's consideration," he said. "I'm considering things." "What kinds of things?" "Administrative things." She did not ask what that meant. She decided that probably she did not need to right now. Her stepmother appeared at the gate. She did not come out onto the path. She stood at the boundary of the property, which was a very specific kind of choice. Her face did something complicated. Not regret, not quite, but something in the same family as it. Something that, if it had been given more room over the years, might have grown into something useful. Sarah looked at her. She did not look back. She turned to the carriage. The seat was softer than anything she had sat on in recent memory. She sat with her back straight for approximately 3 seconds, and then she relaxed, because her back hurt and she was in a carriage going away from the house, and the only person watching was a king she had just agreed to consider marrying, and if she couldn't unstraighten her spine now, then when? He was across from her. He had papers. He was reading them with the focus of someone who had learned to work in moving vehicles. She looked out the window. The house shrank. She watched it get smaller and smaller, and she waited to feel something large and significant and final. She thought there might be tears, or relief so big it broke through the surface, or some kind of reckoning. Instead, she felt quiet, just quiet, like a room after someone has finally closed the window in a windstorm. The room is still the same room, but the noise is gone, and you stand in the silence, and you do not quite know what to do with your hands, because your hands have been holding things shut for so long. She looked at her hands in her lap. She folded them, then unfolded them, then looked at the window again. "You can ask questions," he said, without looking up from his papers. "I have a lot of questions." I assumed. "Are you going to find me inconvenient?" she said, "after the novelty wears off." He looked up. He set the papers down on his knee. He looked at her the way he had looked at her in the corridor, reading something, carefully. "I don't know," he said. "I haven't decided yet." "That's an honest answer." "You asked for honest." "I did. A beat." The road was smooth here and the carriage barely moved. "Do you actually want a mate?" she said. "Or do you want someone who looks at you like you're an inconvenience? Because those are 2 different things and I want to be clear about which one I signed up for." He was quiet for a moment. "Both, ideally," he said. She looked at him. "That's a strange answer." "It's an honest one." She looked back out the window. The house was gone now. Just road, just fields, just the world, which was very large and had not been available to her for a long time. She thought about the book in her bag. The broken spine, the pages gone soft. She thought about the blue glass. She thought, "I am in a carriage with a king I don't know, going somewhere I have never been, and my hands are in my lap and I don't know what comes next." She thought, "I have never not known what comes next and been okay with it." She thought, "I think I might be okay with it." The carriage moved through the morning. Sarah sat with her hands folded in her lap. She unfolded them. She let them rest flat on her knees, palms up, open. She did not count her fingers. That was the thing she noticed. She usually counted her fingers. She had done it since she was small, in the attic, when the noise from downstairs got too loud and she needed something to hold on to that was real and solid and hers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Other hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10. Present, here. She did not do it. She looked out the window instead. Trees moved past. A field, a river somewhere. She could see the glint of it between the low hills. She had never been this far from the house. Everything was slightly different in color from what she knew. More of everything. She did not know what Aldrich's household would look like. She did not know if the people there would be kind or merely polite or something worse. She did not know if he would turn into someone she didn't recognize once he was in his own space, the way people sometimes do. She did not know a lot of things. She was surprised to find that this did not feel the way she expected it to. She expected it to feel like falling, like the drop in your stomach when the ground turns out to be closer than you thought. It felt more like standing at the edge of something very high and realizing that the air is good up here. Cold, maybe. Unfamiliar, but good. Across from her, Aldrich had gone back to his papers. She could hear the faint sound of the road and the horses, and very far behind them nothing. Nothing. That was the house getting farther away. "I'll need to learn things," she said. Not really to him, not really to herself, to the window. "Yes," he said. "I'm a quick learner. I know." She looked at him. "You've known me for 3 hours. You calculated exactly how loud to speak in a hallway that was not yours to carry sound through the floor," he said. "You knew which corridor to take to avoid the main hall. You noticed the bread before you noticed me." He turned a page. "You're a quick learner. You've had to be." She was quiet for a moment. "That's a lot to notice in 3 hours," she said. "I notice things," he said. "It's useful." "Is it useful to notice me?" He set the papers down. He looked at her. No reading this time. Just direct. Straight. Like he was putting something down for her to pick up or leave. "Yes," he said. "I think it will be." She looked back out the window. The river was closer now, silver in the morning light. She opened her hands again in her lap. Palms up. 10 fingers. She did not count them. She let the road take her forward. End.